Hi, I'm Luma Haj, Executive Director of Operations at WHUT. WHUT has been serving the Washington DMV area for 40 years. In fact, November 17th is our 40th anniversary. I'm honored to be here tonight with you and be part of the 2020 Veterans Week as a media sponsor. WHUT has been supporting and airing Veterans in Transition for the past few years and is happy to continue to bring your stories to our audiences. I hope you enjoy the gala. Thank you.
Veterans in Transition is sponsored by Dana W. and Robert G. Hisoka, CRP Inc., Peden & Scott, TME Enterprises, Fellows, Wells Fargo, and Thundercat Technology.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Veterans in Transition, in association with JMA Solutions inaugural virtual 2020 Gala, Veterans Gala. I'm Rod Minor, President and CEO of BRT Consulting, along with my wife, Sarita Minor. BRTV Consulting is a media company that provides military veteran entrepreneurs a platform to share their knowledge, leadership, and inspirational stories from serving to their transition to civilian life. We're so excited that you decided to join us this evening as we have a dynamic program in store for you. First of all, happy Veterans Week to all our veterans and to the family members of those who have served. Our week's activities are culminated with this fantastic gala. JMA Solutions and I have teamed together to bring a week's worth of events to you. And it brought a wealth of information and insight to our viewers. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce to you our gala event chair, Chief Master Sergeant, U.S. Air Force retired, and President and CEO of JMA Solutions, an aviation consulting firm, Ms. Jan Adams. Jan?
Thank you, Rodney, and good evening, everybody. It has been a joy working with you to put these activities on this week. We've received so many compliments, positive compliments from social media as to how much people have enjoyed these events. Thank you so much for choosing me to work with you. I want to give a huge thanks to our beneficiary, the Disabled American Veterans Organization, the DAV. Next, I want to play a video from DAV talking about some of the support they provide to our veterans.
100 years ago, DAV, Disabled American Veterans, was formed in the aftermath of World War I. Since that time, we have remained an organization led by disabled veterans to serve the needs of ill and injured veterans and their families.
We've had many victories over the years, but none of it would have been possible without the members, families, advocates, volunteers, sponsors, and supporters. Our 100-year milestone is a tribute to you all.
Every day in communities across the nation, DAV is there. We provide critical services and help veterans access benefits including healthcare and employment.
Our nation has faced many struggles and hardships during those 100 years, but one thing has not changed: the need for the service and support offered by DAV.
There will be more wars and more veterans will need our help, but DAV will be there for the next century and beyond. So happy 100th birthday, DAV, and here's to another 100 years of service.
Happy 100 years, DAV, and thank you again. Now, I want to recognize any flag officers that we may have in attendance, and I believe that possibly retired General Larry Spencer is among you. Any of the flag officers, any Chief Master Sergeants, thank you for attending, and everybody, we thank you for being here. Of course, General Dunford is in attendance. He's our keynote speaker, and you will meet him later. And we have the great mayor of Washington, D.C., the Honorable Muriel Bowser, who will introduce General Dunford, and you'll also meet her later. Next, I want to introduce our Mistress of Ceremony, who comes to us from military veterans in journalism. Her name is Priya Schroeder, and she is a political reporter for NBC7 in San Diego. Some of the most impactful stories she's covered include the aftermath of the shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and the historic 2015 presidential elections in Nigeria. Priya is originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and is an officer in the United States Navy Reserve. She is on the board of the Asian American Journalists Association, San Diego, and Military Veterans in Journalism.
Military Veterans in Journalism is an organization for veterans to support their career growth in the news business.
My mentor has helped me to kind of see where my passions lie. This time I'm not serving my country in uniform. I'm informing the public with accurate storytelling and impact.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Priya Schroeder. Priya, we're so excited to have you join us this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jan, for that wonderful introduction. I'm so honored to be here to MC this historic gala, especially since it's an inaugural event. When you guys approached me with the concept, I couldn't say no. I definitely wanted to be a part of it, so I'm so excited to be here. I also want to thank all the veterans that are in attendance for their service. I hope everybody will enjoy the wonderful program that we're having this evening, so fasten your seatbelt, sit back, relax, and enjoy it. So first on the program is Lisa Taylor, who is a liaison specialist for the Veterans History Project of the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. Ms. Taylor, we welcome you.
Thank you so much, Priya. It's my honor to be here this evening, and it's always my honor to represent the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and make accessible the war stories of U.S. military veterans who served at any point from World War I through the more recent conflicts and are now separated from service. The Veterans History Project currently holds more than 111,000 veterans collections. We depend upon volunteers from across the country to submit these priceless stories to us following the guidelines we provide in our How-To Field Kit. Our volunteers are comprised of everyday people, organizations, high school and college educators and students, houses of worship, congressional offices, military service organizations, and the veterans' own loved ones. It's been my pleasure to work closely with Rodney Minor and Veterans in Transition these past several months on several media projects and veterans oral history interviews. I'm particularly proud of the special 1-hour edition of Veterans in Transition, which premiered on WHUT TV 32 on Veterans Day, and will be running a few more times this month. I'm also happy to announce that in February 2021, Veterans in Transition will ceremoniously donate to the Library of Congress the raw interviews of several veterans that they've interviewed in the past several months and maybe over the years, so that future generations will be able to hear firsthand about their service and sacrifice. So thank you so much, Rodney, for continuing to collaborate with the Library of Congress in this way. Before I close, I'd just like to make a special appeal to all the veterans who are participating tonight, anyone who is watching from home, or who will be watching this in the future. If you are a veteran, share your story with the Veterans History Project. If you know a veteran, interview that veteran that's in your life for the Veterans History Project and submit their story while there is still time. Visit loc.gov/vets to download a field kit and get started right away. That's loc.gov/vets with an S. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Taylor. I'm so interested in learning more about it. I didn't know much about this project before this program, so I can't wait to dive in and explore that some more. And now we want to highlight some of the men and women who helped make this inaugural week of veteran programming engaging and informative. Check it out.
This year's inaugural 2020 Veterans Week started off on Sunday with The Spiritual Perspective, hosted by Pastor Michelle Irby Johnson. And on Monday, we hosted Business Monday with Chief Master Sergeant Retired Jan Adams. And then on Tuesday, the E9 Women's Roundtable discussion was hosted by Chief Master Sergeant Retired Rosalind Davis and Chief Master Sergeant Retired Zinda Barnes. And on Wednesday, Veterans Day, we proudly produced 6 hours of programming, beginning with the Scott Mentoring Group with Colonel Retired Abraham Morrow Jr. and John P. Mayhew Foundation with Colonel Retired Mary Lowe Mayhew. The City Club of Washington with Colonel Retired Michael Black. And our very own Director of Communications, Monica Valdivias Wiley. And we followed up with our signature and popular Vets Talk, hosted by Master Sergeant Retired Michelle Irby Johnson. And then on Thursday, Generally Speaking, hosted with Retired General Larry O. Spencer. And then finally on Friday, we heard from the Next Generation of Future Kings, a nonprofit organization that changes the lives of young men through STEM education. What a power-packed week we had celebrating our veterans. Thank you so much for your service.
And next, I want to introduce the Mayor of Washington, D.C., the Honorable Muriel Bowser, who will introduce our keynote speaker. And I understand that today, Mayor Bowser received the 2020 Champion of Change Award from the D.C. Chamber of Commerce. Congratulations and welcome, Mayor Bowser.
It is indeed an honor to be here with you this evening. First and foremost, I want to thank all of our veterans for their service to our nation and also recognize their families for the sacrifices they've made too. Thank you, Rodney Miner and Jane Adams, for hosting this event. Coming into the office, I established a Veterans Affairs Office to ensure a few things: that we have a way of staying in touch with our veterans, that we are paying attention to their specific needs, and to ensure that when our veterans need the support of their government, they know exactly where to turn. And I am very proud of the work of our office and our director, Tamingo, who is doing an outstanding job serving more than 31,000 veterans who call DC home. Tonight, I am pleased and honored to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. General Joseph Dunford served our nation in the Marine Corps for 42 years. He last served as the 19th Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In this position, he was the nation's highest-ranking military officer and the principal military advisor to the President, Secretary of Defense, and National Security Council. Before becoming the chairman, General Dunford served as the 36th Commandant of the Marine Corps and previously served as the commander of the International Security Assistance Force and the United States Forces, Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a distinguished patriot and public servant, General Joseph Dunford.
No, hey, thanks so much, Mayor. Good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, the format tonight is primarily question and answers. And for those of you who've been on Zoom very much over the last few months, I think one of the lessons learned is that you go much beyond 5 or 10 minutes and you lose the audience. And so my opening comments will be relatively brief. This audience knows better than most that we really do live in very challenging times. And I thought I'd start by just talking about the president-elect's inbox. You know, you think about it as the president-elect prepares to take office, his inbox is already full. Our challenges include, of course, China and Russia. Both countries are pushing back on the international laws, norms, and standards that have brought us relative peace and prosperity since World War II. And they clearly present significant political, economic, and security challenges. Dealing with a rising China and a revisionist Russia is going to require some heavy lifting in the days ahead. The president's also going to have to deal with Iran and North Korea. Both countries over the last couple of years have continued to advanced their nuclear program, even in the wake of significant economic and diplomatic pressure. And so the president's going to have to deal with what is now an emerging nuclear program in both countries. And as we all know, violent extremism has been described as a generational problem. And so the president will also be dealing with that. And other immediate issues in his inbox are going to include our future commitments in Iraq, in Syria, in Somalia, and of course, in Afghanistan. And if all of those national security challenges weren't enough, here at home, the president has to guide us through the crisis of COVID and address the many issues that have been really exposed during a very, very challenging political campaign season. Racism, the climate, economic disparity, healthcare, the deficit, and a range of other issues await the president's attention. President-elect's made it clear that his first priority is COVID, and I think it's fair to say that that priority reflects the will of the American people. We've all seen the incredible suffering and loss, economic impact of COVID. I'm involved with a few veterans organizations, and I can say, and I think those on the call tonight would all agree, that among those who have suffered the most during COVID, or those that are among us that are most vulnerable, are veterans that are suffering the visible and invisible wounds of war. And I've also seen the impact of COVID firsthand with the loss of my mother-in-law back in the spring. And she was in a nursing home in the DC area. And we all know how vulnerable the elderly have been to COVID, particularly in the early days before we developed ways of protecting them. And with all of that, I think tonight it would be easy to be pessimistic about the future. But in all sincerity, as I have prepared to come and see you tonight, and as I have gone through and participated with a number of veterans events this week, I actually believe there's some room for optimism. And before the question and answer period, I just wanted to share with you a couple of events that I've participated in this week that really have given me some optimism. You know, I started the week speaking to a group called Veterans on Wall Street. It's an organization, really, it's a group of individuals who have come together in an informal organization over the past 10 years and just tried to help people transitioning into the financial business on Wall Street. And they have a number of great success stories of veterans that they have transitioned from active duty to help be successful on Wall Street. But while helping those individuals, they also have been incredibly generous to veterans that needed really basic quality of life support and support to be independent as well. So they've helped all veterans. And then on Wednesday, I attended an event. It was co-sponsored by two veterans organizations, one Team Rubicon, the other Headstrong. Team Rubicon is an organization that has trained and deployed over 100,000 volunteer veterans in response to national disasters, floods, fires, hurricanes, earthquakes, both in the United States and outside the United States. And most recently, these veterans have volunteered to help in the COVID response as well. Headstrong, another veteran success story, is an organization that was founded by a couple of veterans. They were in a restaurant one night, and they were reflecting on the scourge of suicide amongst veterans and the almost 22 or 23 veterans who commit suicide per day. And they decided to do something about it. And they established an organization that's now supporting 200 veterans in 4 different cities with treatment for post-traumatic stress that's free of bureaucracy, free of stigma, and no cost to the veteran. And then I saw a story. I was watching television on Veterans Day itself, and there was a Marine sergeant by the name of Sam Floyd. He had suffered debilitating post-traumatic stress. And he reached out and he got help from an organization called Semper Fi and America's Fund, which helps all of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who have been wounded or suffering catastrophic injuries. And Sam reached out and he was linked up with a case manager. And in the course of his recovery from post-traumatic stress, he shared with his case manager that he had an aspiration to go in the coffee roasting business. And Jenna and Hoda were interviewing him on Veterans Day, and he now has that coffee roasting business. He's overcome the challenges of post-traumatic stress, and he's now actually giving 10% of the proceeds of his organization back to the fund that actually helped him and also the families. And tonight we're here with Jan Adams, a veteran entrepreneur, and she hadn't forgotten where she's come from. And I saw Rodney Miner, who kicked us off with Veterans in Transition, an organization that brings the stories of transitioning veterans to life. And we've seen the videos of the veterans that have gone into journalism and obviously our sponsor, the Disabled American Veterans Organization, that has done so much for veterans. So as I reflect back on the week, on what these veterans and so many others have done, it's reminded me about what's good about our country. And when I think about it, I don't mean just what's good about our country and veterans, but it's also reminded me of the many other Americans. I mean, the doctors, the nurses, the staff that have helped us deal with COVID. And then the Americans that are just out there going about their daily lives, that are volunteering to make improvements in their community, in their church, in schools. And these veterans have reminded me that, no, our nation's not perfect. And we've seen that. Our nation's not perfect. But we have been on a continuous journey in search of a more perfect union. And while sometimes we look at our country as a snapshot in time, we can be concerned about it. But I think if we look at our country over time, we can see that march towards progress. And I'm reminded that we are facing challenges today, but it's not the first time. And in the past, the formula for dealing with those challenges has been committed American patriots, men and women who have come together to do what must be done to overcome adversity and make us better. And what these veterans and those of you actually that have gathered here tonight have reminded me of is that, you know, democracy is not a spectator sport. If we want our country to succeed, we can't just talk about it. We've got to do something about it. And the other thing that they reminded me of is that, yes, our country's about challenges, but it's about opportunities as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I've watched veterans in action this week, celebrating Veterans Day, as I've looked at your program and looked at the veterans that have come together this week as part of this week-long celebration, it gives me hope. And when I think about the people that have spoken to you, Chief Wright, General Spencer, when I think about Sam Floyd, the coffee roaster, I think about Jan Adams, the entrepreneur, I can't help but feel that our country is going to succeed. We're going to be okay. And I think tonight, my message to all veterans is that, you know, we need to maintain hope, but we need to take that hope and translate it into action to make our country all that it can be for our citizens, but not only for our citizens today, but our citizens well in the future. And so before I take your questions, what I really want to do is I want to thank all the veterans that are out here tonight for what they did during their time on uniform. I want to thank you for what you're doing today. And more importantly, I want to thank you for what you're going to do in the future, because this week you've committed to serve. And that doesn't mean necessarily that you'll take on the kind of high profile, difficult service of someone like Mayor Bowser. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll do something formal like you did wearing uniform, but in some small way, what veterans can be is an example of selfless service. And I'm convinced that if veterans help to lead the way, because there's many others that will join us, but if veterans help to lead the way, then that inbox that President-elect Biden has, that full inbox that I described, well, we can help the President-elect chip away at it. And in 4 years from now, we can look back and say that we are a better country because we work together to help overcome those challenges. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Priya. I was pleased to find out that she's not only a naval officer, but she's from the Boston area. Priya, I'm coming to you tonight from the Boston area, so I hope I have a chance to see you if you ever make it back home. And now we can talk about what's on folks' minds that are with us.
General Dunford, thank you so much for that. I did notice also that we had the Boston thing in common, and you know, your words and your remarks were so inspiring, and I think they're a perfect segue into our first question from the audience. I'm just going to read it directly. It says, "Hi, General. Thank you for your service. What do you think is important for retired veterans to do in order to be a voice of leadership during COVID and beyond?"
Sure, Priya, it's a great question, and I want to thank whoever asked the question, but what can we do to help deal with COVID and beyond? You know, I think one of the things that characterizes people who have served in uniform and veterans is resilience. And what does resilience come from? Resilience comes from confidence that, I can overcome challenges. And whatever challenge I'm dealing with today, I can reflect back on other challenges and say, you know what, this is not as difficult as other things I have done. I know we can make a difference here. And I think that there is a sense, because we're all isolated. One of the challenges, look, I'm dealing with the same thing, family-wise and otherwise. We're not as close to our family and friends as we want to be. We don't have as much human contact as we want to. And I think what veterans can do is maintain a sense of optimism and convey that sense of optimism to the people around us that, yes, this is a difficult time, but it is a challenge that I know that we can overcome. And I think the other thing that makes the military work well is communications. We all know that the most effective leaders are leaders that communicate. As I like to say, you can't be the strong silent type in the 21st century. You need to talk to people. You need to express a vision. You need to inspire them to get the job done. And I think veterans can do that. And whether it's in the private sector where veterans may find themselves, whether it's in that community service I spoke about, or whether it's those that are still in government service, I think our nation needs a dose of optimism right now. I think we need a dose of inspiration that will convince us, yes, we are going to emerge from this, and we're going to emerge from it stronger and move on. So I hope, Priya, that, again, as I really mentioned in my remarks, I really hope that what veterans can do first and foremost is serve as an example to our fellow citizens of endurance, serve as an example of commitment, and as importantly, serve as an example of optimism.
I definitely think that's a good reminder. This is another question from an audience member. General Dunford, I have a son who is a first lieutenant in the Space Force. Where do you see the Space Force in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years?
Sure, that is a great question. And we ought to have that first lieutenant on here to answer that question. But I'll take a crack at it because, I was one who testified and argued that we should establish the Space Force. And what I tell the parents of the first lieutenant is that, the one reason why we established the Space Force is we recognized how dependent our nation was on space. I mean, whether it be transportation, whether it be communications, whether it be the economic, the financial business, so many aspects of our daily life that we take for granted are dependent on space. And I think over the next 5 or 10 years, one of the first things that the Space Force has to do, and they're doing it right now, is identify the specific capabilities that our nation needs to have in space. They need to identify the vulnerabilities of the capabilities that we have in space today and make sure we put ourselves in a position where we can protect those space capabilities that our people rely on. And then the other challenge will be that first lieutenant is in a relatively small group right now. And I think probably one of the most important things that we can do as we stand up Space Force is to recruit and retain the high quality people that we're going to need to address what is one of only 5 domains in joint warfighting. And again, beyond just joint warfighting, so important to our country. So if I was a young first lieutenant, I'd be pretty excited about being in the Space Force.
Thank you so much for that answer. The next question, good evening, General Dunford. Do you feel the pandemic will be something that helps or hurts military recruitment in the next couple of years?
For the person that asked that question, that's also consistent with a theme that I really wanted to convey tonight. And I think what the pandemic has highlighted is the nature of the challenges that our country faces in the future. And I have always now 4 or 5 years been talking about every challenge that I can think about that our nation faces really cuts across multiple geographic areas. We call them transnational, transregional threats, and the pandemic is one of them. And what I hope is that when people look at challenges that our country faces, and whether it's the challenges that I mentioned, the traditional security challenges of China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, or extremism, whether it be the challenges of the environment, whether it be challenges like the pandemic, I hope that it will inspire the best and brightest of our young people to step up and help us to deal with these challenges. So I believe if we approach our recruiting properly and we talk about the importance of these challenges our country faces, we talk about the importance of human capital and helping us overcome those challenges, we'll inspire people that want to do medical research, we'll inspire people that want to be in infantry, we'll inspire people that want to be in the Space Force to help deal with all these challenges. So the pandemic, I hope, is a call to action, and I hope that we can overcome the perception that somehow you might be more dangerous, you might be more exposed if you're in the military. I prefer to look at it a different way and say that if good people are out there dealing with challenges like the pandemic, then the moms and dads and brothers and sisters and cousins and grandparents are all safer as a result of our efforts. And what it really does is it expands the definition of national security to the 21st century. And you certainly have to consider non-traditional security challenges like the pandemic now as things that need to be front and center when we think about national security.
All right, the next question. Sir, it's great to see you remain so active with veterans since you left active duty. This is a question from a fellow South Shore guy who has the highest respect for you as a leader and as a man. The quick question for you, what has been the most difficult aspect of your transition back to the civilian world after 42 years in uniform, and what has been the easiest part of your transition?
Sure. That's a great question, because for those who don't know, I'm 12 months. This is exactly 12 months. I retired officially in November of 2019. So this is 1 year since I transitioned. And I like to tell people I've got a lot of lessons learned that I'm going to apply the next time I transition, because I've made a few mistakes and I got some things right. I think the easiest thing for me to do has been to, believe it or not, replace that sense of mission that I had when I was on active duty. As you can imagine, I didn't spend 42 years in uniform without really being passionate about what I did and being passionate about the people that I did it with. And very quickly after I transitioned, I'm doing some teaching. I'm teaching some national security fellows here in the Boston area, and these are in some cases mid-grade leaders who are studying for a year at Harvard University. I'm working with some graduate students at the Kennedy School, trying to inspire the next generation of leaders, to include those who will be our civilian leaders. As the person asked the question mentioned, I'm the chairman of the Simplifying America's Fund, which I want to emphasize is for all services. We did that in February. I joined the fund earlier this year, and for 8 years we've been supporting all the services, and we rebranded ourselves to add the America's Fund so that it was clear that we helped all wounded, ill, and injured veterans. I'm involved in another veterans organization, the Mannion Foundation, which is about character development for the next generation. So I really do feel that there's ways to continue serving, and I'm sure many of the veterans out here have had a similar experience. I think the hardest thing I've had to do is manage my time. I have found that there are deficiencies in my time management and organizational skills. When I'm, to borrow the Army's expression, I'm an army of one up here. Everything I'm doing, I'm largely doing by myself here in the confines of the office that you see. I probably said yes to too many things, and so in year 2, I hope to settle that down a little bit and be more realistic in my ability to contribute to the endeavors that I've joined. But I would tell you, it's been a good transition. And one tip for veterans out here, I would say that the reason why I can tell you my transition has gone relatively well is because I reached out to a number of the people that had gone before me to seek advice. And although I alluded to some mistakes I made, look, we're all going to make some mistakes. I really feel like my transition has gone very smoothly because a number of people that were my mentors, a number of people that transitioned before me helped me to refine my objectives. So I knew what I wanted to do. And they put me in touch with people that could help me realize the goals that I have in this next chapter of my life. I almost never use the expression retirement. I transitioned, and now I'm in a different chapter. And just like, again, most of us that are on the Zoom here tonight. So thanks for that question. And for the person from the South Shore, I hope I see you out here.
Thank you, sir. And this next one is from General Larry Spencer. He says, thanks for your service and thanks for speaking tonight. What do you believe that we as veterans can do to help bring our country together? It's great to see that you're still leading our country. You're a role model for us all.
Hey, General Spencer, Larry, I think I mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, that we were in the Vice Squad together, and now for well over a decade, I've had the privilege of calling Larry Spencer a friend. Larry, I think that much like I spoke about earlier in terms of, what we can do, I really do think that the network of veterans, we've lived in an environment where people from all walks of life, all parts of the country, all races, all creeds, all colors come together. And while we're not perfect, we all work towards a common mission. And, most of the time you're working with a soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine, where they're from, but it isn't something that you think about every day. You know what school they went to, but it doesn't really matter what school they went to. What matters is that you can trust them. And I think that what we have in the military, with a mission focus that brings together people from diverse backgrounds and gets them focused on a singular goal, I honestly believe that's something we should talk about more, because we in the military, and I'm guilty of it, we always have a tendency to talk about where we need to get better, and I think that's good, and I don't want to lose that part of our character. But I also think that there's some things that we have done that can be an example for our country, and I think the ways that we are dealing, I don't say have dealt with, because these are challenges we're still working on, but I think the ways that we are dealing with some of these challenges that are tearing our country apart, that we've seen in the news so much over the past year, I think my experience is that those of us in uniform have found ways to really focus on what brings us together more than what brings us apart. But Larry, thank you also for your leadership and continued service after you've taken off the uniform.
And General, I believe this is our last question. The audience member asks, in your opinion, what is the status of the American military today?
Hey, it's a great question. And Priya, how much time do we have? I don't want to put the program behind.
I think everyone will love to listen to however long you'd like to talk.
All right. So look, I think people like General Spencer and I have over 4 decades of context here to provide. And what I would tell you is, and I mean this sincerely, and I know that the veterans who have recently transitioned all know this, there is no question about the quality of the men and women that we continue to recruit and retain. We have good people in the U.S. military, and that's what's allowed us to overcome some incredible challenges. But when we ask about the status, it's about more than the people. And we have run those people very hard over the last 15 or 20 years. And in many cases, the singular focus on dealing with violent extremism, our deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, have caused us to lose focus on some other capabilities. And this is why we hear so much today about cyber capabilities and space capabilities, electronic warfare capabilities, because those are areas that require increased investment today for us to maintain our competitive advantage. And what I would tell you is, I still believe that the U.S. military has a competitive advantage over any potential adversary in the world. I really do believe that. And I'm only 1 year dated as the chairman. But I also believe that the competitive advantage that we enjoyed 15 or 20 years ago has eroded significantly. And why is that? It's because while we were focused on violent extremism, the Chinese, the Russians, and others have been studying us. And they really have studied us since Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And they watched how we projected power on the world. They watched our network of allies, which is our strategic source of strength. And they have identified what they perceive to be our vulnerabilities. And they've spent a decade and a half developing capabilities, developing systems that are designed to exploit what they perceive are those vulnerabilities. And those capabilities, in many ways, challenge our ability to project power around the world and then to operate freely across those domains I spoke about earlier: sea, air, land, space, and cyberspace. So 2 or 3 years ago, really in the last year of the previous president's administration and continue on over the last 2 or 3 years, the Congress has been very, very generous in the budgets for the Department of Defense. But it took us a decade and a half to get in the hole that we're in terms of investments that are relevant to the 21st century. Because what we did in the past is not what we will do in the future. In the pace of change, when I was a lieutenant, the pace of change was measured in terms of decades. Now it's measured in terms of months. And so when I think about the status of the American military, what I would say is this: complacency kills. And while we do have a competitive advantage today, and again, that's really defined as our ability to deter conventional conflict and respond in the event that deterrence fails, we shouldn't take that for granted. We should recognize the areas where we're being challenged right now, and we should help lead change into the future. And again, I'd close by saying I'm optimistic about our ability to lead change. And the reason I'm optimistic is because we do have an incredible group of men and women that have chosen to put on a uniform. And because of them, I'm on the sidelines now cheering loudly for them. But because of them, I feel confident that we will restore that competitive advantage and get the U.S. military where it needs to be in the 21st century. None of us should believe where we are today. We're good. We got to get better.
Sir, thank you so much for your remarks. I know I personally was extremely inspired and motivated by everything that you had to say, and I'm sure all the audience members feel the same way.
Well, Priya, thanks so much. And I want to thank Jan and Rodney and all the others that put this together this week. I mean, a couple of people asked me tonight, what can veterans do and so forth. My final answer is just be like Jan, just be like Rodney, just be like Priya, who volunteered to MC tonight, who's also a veteran. Just be people that are willing to step up and make a difference, and we're going to be okay. So God bless you all, and take care.
Thanks again. And so now we have one more act to look forward to. Lamont King is going to provide us some comedic entertainment. And afterwards, Jan and Rodney are going to return to close out our evening. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Lamont King.
Thank you. Please hold your applause. I'm just happy to be here. First off, I want to say salute and thank you to all the veterans that are participating in this. Thank you for all your service and everything that you do. I just got in here. I'm Lamont King. I'm used to be a traveling pre-COVID comedian. Now I'm just a Zoom comic who broadcasts live inside of my tiny closet studio where I'm streaming to you live now. I thought I was going to be late, to be honest. Now, after those serious remarks and all of that, we're just going to lighten it up a little bit. And some of you, if you're entertained, enthused, or offended by anything that I say over the course of the next 5 to 7 minutes, please make sure you hold your comments to the end and get them to me, and I'll add them to my high score. 2020, man, it's been a doozy. It's been a cold one. I feel like the universe is playing tricks on us. I feel like in some way there's somebody, some higher being just sitting there laughing like 2020 was this way because you're not getting another one. I feel like this is the last one. Everybody's anticipating 2021. They count down to New Year's. I'm actually anxious. I'm pretty scared. I don't know if we're going to get another one after this. So much bad news back to back. But I got some good news, ladies and gentlemen. I just found out that I saved a boatload of money on car insurance by letting my policy run out. Listen, you don't really need car insurance. Just drive safe. If you drive safe, you don't really need car insurance. I feel like this crowd that's watching me right now probably has Geico, right? Well, I have Let Go. I got Let Go insurance. The bill comes, I just let it go. I looked up and they let me go. So there's that. But it's been a rewarding time for me recently. I just participated in Restaurant Week in the area that I live in. So I just had my first $37 cheeseburger. Yes, indeed. Hey, it's first time for everything. I feel like in these times, you don't need to cheat yourself. Treat yourself sometimes. If you got it, you should get it, right? So full transparency. All right, this is what happened. I was really eating a fast food burger off of the fast food menu, off of the value menu. I'm in the drive-thru. I'm ordering this $2 cheeseburger. I get around, go to swipe the card, not realizing I only had $1 in my bank account. And Bank of America felt the need to tack $35 extra on this $2 cheeseburger, which immediately turned it into a $37 cheeseburger. Now listen, don't judge me. You judge your moms. You have not eaten good until you've had an overdraft burger. Next time you're out, go get the overdraft burger with cheese. I don't want to make a big deal about money, man, because it comes and goes. You get it, you lose it. But I feel like our government, man, oh man, they can just print it out of thin air. You remember, money is always a big deal to the government until it comes down to bailing out rich folks. You remember the first stimulus at the beginning of the summer? 2 trillion. It was like they just went and got that money off of the dresser. Like, would you go in there and just get that 2 million off of the dresser? You know how you go see your grandparents or you ask old people where's the money at, and they like, oh, it's in the dresser. Let's just go in there, look off the bureau. It's on top of the bureau, and it's like 27 different things that you got to move to get to the money. It's on the bureau. It's next to you'll see the Pekino chips. It's right next to that. To the gift cards. Move the coupons right by the 10 acting, the foot powder. Move the foot powder, and that's where the money is. 2 trillion off of the dresser. That was amazing. Virtual school. Not a success, man. If you got school-age children, I know you're dealing with these challenges, man. And I wish you the best. I was not ready for it. It's an adjustment. I'm ready for my kids to go back in the classroom. It's so bad where I'm like, listen, I'm willing to take the risk on you. Get back in the classroom, keep your head down, keep your face covered, and hit them books. Because me helping you at home, shout out to all the teachers and educators out there, because we took them for granted. We didn't know. I'm a strict parent. I don't know how some of you guys are, but my kids, man, they got the virtual classes. I got the backgrounds going. I wake them up early. I'm like, put your uniforms on. But they like, Dad, we're at home. I'm like, okay. We're going to treat this like you're in class and in school. I don't care what you wear on the bottom, but on the top, you got to have that uniform. About to get out of here. This has been fun for me. I hope it's been fun for you. I'm going to leave on this story. I want to salute veterans. My father is actually an Air Force veteran, and he told me the story. I told him what I was going to be doing tonight, and he told me a story. I was like, give me a story. Give me a cool story. And he was like, all right, I'll tell you a story. I went to basic in San Antonio, Texas in 1964. And I said, oh, wow, okay. And he was like, I got my orders. And my drill sergeant came up to me and said, son, where you headed to? And I told him, I'm going overseas. Drill instructor said, you can't go overseas straight out of basic. Let me see your orders. So he looked at the orders. The order said Mississippi. The drill instructor said, yeah, you're going to fit right into the U.S. military. I called my father this week. I was like, hey, man, did you see the news? There's a state representative in Mississippi who wants to secede from the Union and become their own country. My father said, hey, I tried to tell you. Hey, that's my time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Lamont King. Be sure to check my podcast, Let's Go Live with Lamont King. I do a YouTube show, live stream, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. to 7 Eastern time, and available on all other platforms. I appreciate y'all again. Thank you for your service. I hope I was able to entertain and you enjoyed it. Please enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you so much, Lamont. I'm definitely going to check out your podcast and your YouTube, especially as a political reporter. I can appreciate your political humor.
Thank you.
So as Jan and Rodney are returning to the screen, I want to thank you guys all so much for allowing me to be your mistress of ceremonies. Again, I'm Priya Sridhar, and I thank you guys so much for your attention this evening.
You were absolutely amazing. Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Thank you, Mayor Bowser. And a special thank you to Jim Dunford. Thanks, Lamont, for making us laugh. I didn't realize that your dad was in the Air Force, so thanks for his service as well. And thanks to everyone who tuned in and to our people behind the scenes. A huge thanks again to the DAV, our beneficiary, and to all our sponsors.
Jan, I too want to thank the General for his time. Lamont, for your comedy. Definitely appreciate that. It's very timely, as a matter of fact. I would like to take just a moment to share a few points of importance for me regarding this week. I want to speak briefly about the concept, the execution, and the celebration. 2020 Veterans Week was born out of our 5 years of producing the television show, Veterans in Transition, which airs regionally on PBS affiliate WHUT. As a matter of fact, they are celebrating 40 years of service this year. Over the years, Veterans in Transition has provided a television and an event platform for veterans, the business, and now the health community. More on that in a moment. But the execution, thanks to this year's chair, Jan Adams, we assembled a remarkable team of women and men of all branches of the armed forces to bring events throughout this past week. Now, as it relates to the celebration, well, you're witnessing it here at this very moment. And we appreciate, you spending time with us. But I'd like to take a moment to return to my point about our relationship with the health community. Like so many men, I too battle with prostate cancer. And for those of us who have been told by their doctor, you have any form of cancer, okay, I don't know about you, but I didn't hear anything else. I didn't hear anything else. And so, like David, going to battle with his slingshot, with his sling and his smooth rocks, I used the gifts and the talents that the Lord has given me to go to battle. And so what we did, we leaned into it and we produced a 1-hour special called Cancer and Veterans Perspective. And we assembled veterans with various forms of cancer. And we celebrated them by telling their story, right? Of how they win as strivers, thrivers, advocates, and champions, #stack, of all forms of cancer. So I leave you with this. Regardless to your health challenge, we encourage you to get checked. All right, Jan, back to you.
Rodney, thank you so much for your testimony and for bringing awareness of prostate and all forms of cancer to light. Enough can never be said about getting checked. For your information, this gala will be aired on PBS's WHUT in December. We'll post information on our social media sites to inform you. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's been a wonderful week, a wonderful night. Jerome Dunford's words were just so amazing. I could just listen to him the rest of the evening. But we're going to close out our program with a medley of the Armed Forces songs. Please sing along with your service songs and have a wonderful night, everybody, and please stay safe.
Shout, counter marching all the